Observe the boundary between the United States and Canada at this moment. It no longer resembles a collaboration. It appears as an economic stronghold under construction live. Throughout your whole existence, Washington presumed Canada would simply comply. Whenever the White House requested something, Ottawa was expected to provide it. But this week, that misconception broke apart. Donald Trump sought to demolish the Canadian economy. He warned of a 100% tariff. He required complete submission. He anticipated a capitulation on his desk by dawn. Instead, Mark Carney overturned the game. He didn't express regret. He didn't plead. He merely excluded the U.S. and shifted to the remainder of the planet. And now the repercussions are impacting American land. Supply chains are fracturing. The Oval Office is reacting frantically live. And Trump is comprehending he has just initiated a worldwide readjustment he is unable to halt. Over the following few minutes, I'm going to demonstrate precisely how Canada executed the supreme bluff call. I'll present the evidence Washington is attempting to conceal, and I'll clarify why this extraordinary action is set to affect your food expenses, your vehicle sector, and your personal finances. This is what has just occurred. It began at 2 a.m. Donald Trump performed what he consistently does. He seized his phone and hurled an explosive. He didn't employ diplomatic routes. He didn't contact the prime minister. He merely issued a warning. The requirement was severe. He declared an instant comprehensive 100% tariff on each individual product traversing the Canadian boundary. All items, wood, metal, aluminum, vehicle components, raw oil, power. He claimed the USMCA trade agreement was a scam. He claimed America was being drained. He provided Canada precisely 48 hours to dispatch a group to Washington and consent to an enormous roster of fresh restrictive limits. If they declined, he stated he would close the northern boundary. He would suspend billions in commerce. He vowed to ruin the Canadian economy by Friday. Trump anticipated the traditional strategy to succeed. He assaults. The victim freaks out. The victim rushes. They travel to Washington. They plead for an exemption. Trump endorses a marginally altered agreement, organizes a gathering, and declares a huge triumph for America. He believed he possessed all the advantages, but Mark Carney ignored the script. Canada's prime minister did not unleash a furious overnight message. He did not appear on TV to shout. He did not dispatch a remorse delegation to the Oval Office. Carney grabbed the phone, but he didn't contact Washington. He reached out to Brussels. He reached out to Tokyo. He reached out to Seoul. Under 12 hours afterward, while the White House was still anticipating Ottawa to capitulate, Carney approached a lectern. He appeared composed. He appeared fully commanding. He declared that Canada was activating a fresh crisis commerce structure, the International Resource Steadiness Pact. Canada just pledged its enormous tactical stockpiles, scarce earth elements, uranium, surplus raw oil, farming shipments. They seized the precise assets Donald Trump warned to impose duties on, and they secured them into extended-term assured agreements with the European Union and the Indo-Pacific. Carney circumvented the United States entirely. He seized the weapon Trump was aiming at Canada, and he merely disarmed it. You must grasp why this is a total upheaval. We must examine the evidence, since what you are viewing on the evening broadcasts is overlooking the whole essence. The American economy cannot operate without Canada. It is a fundamental reality of the North American logistics network. Let's examine the vehicle sector. Currently, thousands of vehicles traverse the Ambassador Bridge, linking Detroit and Windsor each day. They transport automobile components. A lone car door could traverse that boundary 6 times prior to the automobile being completed. Trump warned to impose duties on each individual traversal at 100%. He believed he was damaging Canada, but the immediate following morning, Ford and General Motors activated the alarm. You cannot assemble a pickup truck in Michigan if the aluminum from Quebec and the pressed components from Ontario fail to arrive. You simply can't. The production lines are engineered for on-time shipment. If the vehicles halt, the plant halts. Within hours of Trump's warning, U.S. vehicle shares dropped sharply. Investors are not foolish. They examined the calculations. They comprehended Trump just warned to ruin the American vehicle sector to gain a political advantage. Now examine energy. This is the evidence they truly don't want you to observe. The United States extracts a great deal of oil, but American processing facilities in the Midwest and Texas are particularly constructed to handle dense crude. Where does that dense crude originate? Alberta, Canada. America requires millions of barrels of Canadian oil each day simply to maintain fuel costs steady at your neighborhood station. Trump warned to impose duties on that oil. Carney didn't debate. He merely referenced the fresh Trans Mountain Pipeline growth. He referenced the vessels awaiting on the shoreline of British Columbia. Canada basically stated, if you don't desire our oil, Asia will accept it entirely. Accounts are already emerging from the Department of Energy. Inner projections indicate that if Trump genuinely proceeds, fuel costs in the American Midwest might surge by $1 per gallon in under a week. Trump attempted to employ energy as a tool. Carney transformed it into a barrier. And then there is the upcoming era, the scarce earth elements. This is the most perilous segment of the entire narrative. If you desire to assemble a combat aircraft, you require scarce earth components. If you desire to assemble electric cars, you require lithium and cobalt. If you desire to assemble the systems that operate artificial intelligence, you require these essential elements. China dominates most of the international provision. Canada is the sole secure, dependable substitute in the Western Hemisphere. For years, the Pentagon has depended on Canadian extraction to maintain American military suppliers provisioned. When Trump warned his tariff, Carney executed his most merciless action. He allocated those essential elements elsewhere. The fresh agreements ensure a huge, continuous provision of Canadian lithium, cobalt, and uranium to European technology companies and Japanese vehicle leaders. Carney excluded the U.S. from the most crucial asset competition of the 21st century. What did the cameras capture? Observe Wall Street. The starting signal sounded yesterday, and the displays became fiercely crimson. It wasn't merely the vehicle firms. It was technology. It was military. It was commerce. The Dow Jones Industrial Average suffered a huge decline because the market comprehended something alarming. The United States just forfeited its most dependable associate, and behind the curtains, the alarm is overwhelming. Advocates from the Chamber of Commerce are flooding Capitol Hill. Fortune 500 executives are desperately contacting the White House Chief of Staff. They are all shouting the precise identical message. Reverse it. You are ruining us. This is precisely why Donald Trump is totally forfeiting command of the story. He is ensnared by his own methods. Trump's complete political identity is constructed on a very basic approach. He intensifies with enormous warnings. He forces you into a tight spot. He warns you with complete ruin, and then he awaits for you to yield. It is the perspective of a 1980s property entrepreneur, but you cannot manage international geopolitics like a criminal extortion. He intensifies with warnings, but the world has mastered how to reply. They don't freak out anymore. They reply with substitutes. They reply with quietness, or they reply with organized effort. Observe the cause and effect unfolding at this moment. It is a direct path of catastrophe for the White House. He warned the tariffs. Firms immediately halted their commitments. Supply chains became highly anxious. Wholesale costs promptly started to increase. And American electors are the ones experiencing the distress. His influence entirely misfired. He believed he was detaining Canada captive. But when you warn your nearest associate, you don't appear powerful. You appear totally unpredictable. You appear careless. Trump is impulsive. He operates on whim. He notices a poor survey figure, or he views a portion on cable news that angers him, and he strikes out. He desired to pressure Canada to appear strong for his supporters. He desired to declare, "I put America first." Instead, He compelled Canada to demonstrate they don't really require him. And now Trump is trapped. If he retreats, he appears feeble. His complete tough guy persona breaks. If he advances and implements the tariffs, he initiates a downturn in his own nation. He selected a conflict he cannot triumph. He brought a heavy hammer to a chess contest, and he is positioned opposite the table from a master player. You must grasp why Mark Carney is Donald Trump's total worst dread. Carney doesn't battle like Trump battles. Trump requires a yelling contest. He requires you to descend into the dirt with him. He requires to exchange offenses so he can control the news sequence. Mark Carney declines to engage in that contest. Carney devoted his life at the top tiers of international finance. He managed the Bank of Canada. He managed the Bank of England. He comprehends the concealed infrastructure of the international economy better than nearly any leader on earth. He employs frameworks. He employs partnerships. He employs economies. When Trump launched a reckless strike, Carney didn't strike back. He merely moved aside and allowed Trump's force to drag him over an edge. Carney converts tension into strength. He seized Trump's deranged overnight warning and he turned it into a weapon. He utilized it as irrefutable evidence to the remainder of the world that the United States is presently too unpredictable to depend on. He approached the heads in Europe and Asia and basically stated, observe Washington at this moment. Do you desire your vital logistics networks connected to a man who rules by emotional fluctuations, or do you desire a steady, dependable, regulation-adhering associate up north? The world selected steadiness. Carney is executing an extended-term plan. This isn't merely about enduring a tariff warning. This is about Canadian independence. For generations, Canada's economy was connected closely to the United States. If America coughed, Canada got ill. Carney is severing that link. He is varying the investments. He is constructing an international alliance that protects Canada from Washington's disorder. And he possesses something Trump will never possess: complete trustworthiness with the international economies. When Donald Trump discusses the economies prepare for a collapse. They search for the falsehood. They search for the overstatement. When Mark Carney discusses the economies pay attention, they believe the calculations. Carney didn't elevate his tone. He elevated the price of disregarding Canada. He demonstrated that genuine strength isn't about shouting the most intensely. It's about possessing the greatest choices. Trump required submission. Canada selected choices. Let's expand the view, because this isn't merely a narrative about two leaders. This is about you. This is about your existence. Even if you don't concern yourself with Canadian politics, even if you have never traversed the boundary, Canada influences your existence each day. You are observing history change live. For almost a century, the United States has depended on a protected, amicable, and profoundly connected northern associate. It is the basis of American dominant power position. You never had to concern about your northern side. You never had to concern about where your aluminum, your wood, or your energy was originating from in an emergency. It was an assured protection network. Donald Trump just ignited that protection network. What this signifies for ordinary individuals is a direct, inescapable blow to the expense of living. When logistics networks fracture, you cover it. It signifies the expense of constructing a residence increases because Canadian wood is obstructed. It signifies the expense of purchasing a vehicle increases because the component system is broken. It signifies the expense of warming your residence and refilling your fuel container increases because energy economies are frightened. And it signifies thousands of production positions in locations like Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are abruptly endangered. You can't operate an American plant without Canadian supplies, but the harm extends much further than merely costs. This indicates an enormous breakdown in international confidence. If the United States cannot even sustain a functioning, steady connection with Canada, its nearest cultural, democratic, and economic counterpart, who is going to believe Washington? If Trump is prepared to blackmail his nearest associate, why would Japan believe him? Why would Germany believe him? Why would South Korea believe him? They won't. They are observing this and they are creating their own strategies that do not involve the United States. Trump's interpretation of America first is quickly transforming into America isolated. He didn't bargain, he required, and the world merely withdrew. So what occurs afterward? Where does this proceed from this point? There are three manners this unfolds in the immediate future, and none of them are positive for the White House. Scenario A is the silent withdrawal. This is typically what occurs when Trump's deceptions get exposed. The business contributors and the Wall Street managers will eventually reach him. They will display him the inner information. They will clarify that implementing these tariffs will collapse the stock economy and initiate a downturn right prior to the midterms. Trump will silently allow the time limit to expire. He will access social media and assert he secured enormous hidden yields from Canada that don't really exist. He will assert triumph, but the harm will be accomplished. The fresh Canadian agreements with Europe and Asia will stay active. The U.S. will have forever forfeited an enormous portion of its logistics network safety. Scenario B is the horror intensification. This is the segment where typical leaders generally soothe matters. They withdraw from the edge. But Donald Trump doesn't perform soothing. If he senses embarrassed by Carney's shift, his pride might assume control. He might genuinely endorse the administrative directive. If he does that, the international economies will collapse immediately, and Canada will not remain inactive. Ottawa will initiate prompt, precise counter tariffs. They won't strike all. They will aim particular sectors in strongly conservative U.S. states. They will strike farming in the Midwest. They will strike bourbon in Kentucky. They will strike produced items in pivotal areas. The economic distress in America will be rapid and it will be harsh. Scenario C is the enduring readjustment. This might be the most perilous result of all. The crisis agreements Canada just endorsed become the fresh standard. The United States gradually, agonizingly separates from the Canadian economy. Costs for American buyers increase forever. The U.S. military area lags because it can't obtain scarce earth elements. And America becomes a secluded economic landmass encircled by previous associates who concluded they could no longer bear the danger of conducting commerce with Washington. We are positioned at a critical juncture. The former guidelines of the U.S.-Canada connection are vanished. They are incinerating to the soil live. Donald Trump desired to demonstrate the world who was in charge. He desired to govern through intimidation. But Mark Carney just demonstrated the world that America is not essential. He demonstrated that skill and planning will always defeat whim and fury. The U.S. attempted to trap Canada, and Canada merely exited through an entrance Trump didn't even recognize was there. Do you believe Carney is safeguarding Canada, or is he challenging Trump to exaggerate and ruin his own economy? Share your opinion below. I want to review what you believe and join now if you desire the following report before the conventional news even aligns with the facts.